Folks, this is a presentation on the Ranchers Stewardship Alliance out of Montana, and we have Leo Barthelmess presenting today. And welcome, Leo, and we look forward to hearing your presentation.
Thank you, Susan. Welcome, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to speak for the group here. I'm a cow-calf rancher. My family ranches in Phillips County, 200 miles west of Williston, North Dakota, 80 miles south of the Canadian border, 30 miles north of the Missouri River. I'm the current RSA president, Rancher Stewardship Alliance president, and the organization has loosely been in existence for 19 years. Next video, please. This is our mission statement. We drew this up or developed this about 7 years ago. Ranching, conservation, communities, a winning team. We try to recognize the values in the county, and we're trying not to be a species advocacy group, livestock versus wildlife. We try to work as a group, as a wide range community to recognize a lot of the values that are in Phillips County. Next video, please. The Rancher Stewardship Alliance was established in 2003, formally as a nonprofit by 30 ranch families in Montana who saw a need to come together to resolve problems we were facing. A little history about the region, where our culture is a little different than a lot of geographic areas in Montana. The culture was north of the Missouri River, and we were kind of isolated from markets and historic ranch country, and then the bison were here, the cultures associated with the bison were here, and then the big changes came in the homestead era, where the Phillips County, the highline culture developed with homesteaders coming off the railroad tracks and migrating across this region. So we're not as cattle centric as a lot of this. There's a lot more farming influence. This probably led to the largest massive disturbance of soils and habitats in this region was the homestead era. Next, please. So because of the little bit of a unique culture, we're bounded by the Missouri River, which became the Fort Peck Dam, which isolated the community, the area further from the rest of the state of Montana. A lot more diverse opinions because of the farming influence in the homestead era. And we've always been subject to quite a bit of interest from outlying areas. There's some irrigation projects that created some conflict in the region. And then in the 80s, the prairie dog became a species of concern, and its subsequent value for the ferret reintroduction that created a lot more anxiety among the community. Those things kind of went away for a while, and then we have another problem develop, which turned out to be not a problem, but we had a big conservation group buy a large ranch in the area. Next, please. The Nature Conservancy became our new neighbors. We were unaware of what they wanted here because we were largely ranching communities, especially in South Phillips County, and we had no relationship with them. The communities had no relationship with Nature Conservancy, so everybody was a little skeptical about the reasons that they wanted to be here, and we just didn't know what to expect. Next, please. Well, we found out why they were here. Grasslands, the Nature Conservancy valued the same things that we did: grasslands, wildlife, productive forages, habitat. It turns out that one of the driving forces for purchasing this ranch was to protect it from plow out. The next interested party in the ranch was typically going to farm it. So the ranching community did not understand the conservation values that were in this area. Next, please. So this is an exploded view of the region. You have Valley County highlighted on the right, Phillips County in the middle, Blaine County on the left, and the species that are of concern in this region. In sage grouse, of course, this is one of the biggest core areas for the sage chickens. This region here, also huge amounts of wetland production. Phillips County is one of the highest producing wetland duck production areas in the United States. And it also turns out, unaware of the ranching community again, that we also have the second longest wildlife migration. Goes right through Phillips and Valley County. The antelope come from northern Saskatchewan and drift south of the Missouri River, Fort Peck Lake area, maybe as far as Miles City, Jordan, those kinds of areas. So this is basically the hotspot of conservation in the continental United States. Next, please. As you can see by this expanded map, Montana glaciated plains, the red square is what we just looked at, and the concentration of those little icons is the Phillips County area. The area north of the Missouri River, Fort Peck Lake, is the primary focus area for the Rancher Stewardship Alliance. We have projects ongoing in this area. Next, please. So what do we do now? We have new neighbors. We're unfamiliar with our new neighbors. What are we going to do? Well, it turns out that a drought facilitated the ranchers working with the Nature Conservancy and what has become the Matador Grass Bank. And fortunately, the ranch manager for the Nature Conservancy Matador Ranch recognized the need to have facilitated community meetings. So she was able to secure funding from the Nature Conservancy, and we had numerous meetings to develop the relationships so that we could figure out ways to everybody benefit from working together. We didn't trust the Nature Conservancy. They were a little skeptical about the ranchers. It's just that things you have to go through before you can make some real progress. So next, please. So following our community meetings, we were able to secure a grant and allowed us to tour around and look at other community nonprofits. The Blackfoot Challenge has been a mentor for us. We went to the Malpai Borderlands group and looked at the programs that they had in place. Members of the ranching community from RSA country went to the Nebraska Sand Hills Task Force and the Madison Valley Ranchlands group. These were successful programs that we wanted to duplicate so that the ranching community could participate in the change that had come to our area, our county. We recognized that we can't stop change, but we wanted to participate in guiding that change so everybody could benefit. Next, please. So this is the early group that started the Rancher Stewardship Alliance formally. Their board of directors in here and president in here. We officially became a 501c3 in 2003. We were aided in that endeavor by the legal counsel from the Nature Conservancy of Montana and the National Association. The Rancher Stewardship Alliance went to the effort of becoming a land trust. Although we have not implemented any of that, we have not had the capacity to participate in those kinds of endeavors. That's a really big lift for a small community operation. We support sustainable conservation that features private and public cooperation in a working landscape stewarded by profitable family ranches and thriving rural communities. Early on, in order to work with the conservation community as well as maintain our standing within the ranching community, because some people would not trust the conservation community. We hosted rangeland tours, we have implemented and hosted educational opportunities that include ranching for profit, stockmanship schools, grazing schools, succession planning workshop. We want to lift our entire community to successful economic value. So we have maintained this for 19 years. So next, please. Again, to emphasize the goals of RSA, we engage in collaborative conservation and community building, encourage ranching and other traditional livelihoods that will sustain our native grasslands and rural communities, collect, implement, and disseminate accurate information on the ecology and the sustainable management of the working grasslands. And we advocate for ranching and the value that we play in wildlife habitat and the economies of the world. Phillips County is the 29th largest cow producer in the United States, and Valley County is the 31st. So within this region, we provide a lot of feeder cattle for the livestock industry. Next, please. So recently, as of 2017, some of our supporters that come to our meetings, which we're very blessed to have a diverse group of RSA supporters. We have young women, young men, old women. We have a really diverse group of people. Some of us are ranchers, some of us aren't, some of us are from the conservation committee, or conservation community, I'm sorry. We have a really diverse group of people that we get to flesh out a lot of positive ideas, and people feel free to bring programs to us and opportunities to us, because we've considered ourselves from early on as a clearinghouse for information, as well as a neutral place to have meetings to resolve any conflicts or explore new ideas that are maybe a little bit unconventional or a bit out of the box, but we wanted to be that place people could bring those kinds of ideas. So following a successful grant application from NIFWIF that was brought to us by a young person that supports us, we were successful in the grant application, and we had money, we were awarded money to fence and water CRP. We were awarded, and part of that was part of the venue. And then we were also, the money was dedicated to seeding farmland back to grass, and to do some crested wheatgrass mitigation if so, those projects. So in order to use that money wisely, to give our investment opportunity to really do a good job, we formed the conservation committee, and there's a large group of committee members, and we came together and brought this group of people together and pooled our resources to not only help us use our money wisely, but to give other people opportunity to use their money wisely as well. Next slide, please. So this is our conservation committee, and this slide's a bit dated. We have some additional participants now, but this allows the Rancher Stewardship Alliance and the Conservation Committee that these projects that people want to implement on their properties are secured by some of the partners. They're out in the field working with landowners, and they bring the projects back to the RSA Conservation Committee. And then those projects are vetted and ranked by the entire group, and the committee gives a recommendation to fund a project, and then that goes to the board of directors for the Rancher Stewardship Alliance to actually finance the project. We pool multiple sources of money. Sometimes the Rancher Stewardship Alliance builds fences. Sometimes Fish, Wildlife, and Parks builds fences. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is integral in building fences. Wetlands and reservoir development is done by Ducks Unlimited. The Nature Conservancy offers technical expertise. All of these groups work together to get the biggest bang for the buck for the resources to help our community. As of the date, we have improved grassland grazing opportunities on 20,000 acres. Our in-kind and cash that we've brought to Valley, Phillips, and Blaine counties for conservation work is totaling over $2 million. And we have continued to be successful in getting these projects on the ground, and we have a backlog of projects. Like other presenters have stated today, there's more demand than there is money. So, you know, there's always projects for us to participate in and grow. We have done additional projects, and we'll continue to work at. One of the big problems that we've had is we were an all-volunteer group until 2018, and we had funding for an executive director. And the last grant helped us fund two additional employees. We have, so that we have really been blessed with getting an accountant to do grant and financials for us, and we have a communications expert to help us build relationships and help us sustain our media presence. And, you know, we want to reach out and empower other communities like the ACES group in south of the Missouri River in Montana, or other local rancher-led conservation groups. We want to help them work through the pitfalls that we've faced the last 19 years. Our partners have been instrumental in not only helping us get the conservation dollars to the ground to help the ranching community, but there's also a number of young people, career people on the conservation committee that have also helped us work through the bureaucracy of a nonprofit, developing policy manuals and developing employee manuals, and, you know, the appropriate interviews for employees. And it's a big lift for a small volunteer group, and thankfully we have a large group of supporters in the community that participate every month at meetings. So we're truly blessed with the opportunities of the people and the diversity of people we get to work with. Next slide, please. So I guess this is what if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And we've been working at this for 19 years. And we really appreciate the support that we have received from many different people. And we hope to continue on into the future and providing support for other small nonprofit community-based organizations. I realize I rushed through this, but
are we ready for questions, Leo?
yes, I'm ready for questions. I'd rather answer questions than make presentations.
Okay, well, that was a great presentation. So we will see if we have a couple questions. Before we get to those, though, I do want to just make a quick, I guess it's a combination request and announcement. Because we've wanted to get as much interaction as possible, We're feeling like maybe we can get to one more presentation in this morning session before we go to the afternoon session. So would like to ask Charlie and Jason if they would be amenable to having the Idaho Cheatgrass Challenge presentation lead off the afternoon session at 2 p.m. Mountain. So if you could contemplate that, Charlie and Jason, and if that doesn't work for you, let us know. Maybe reach out to Liz and we'll see what other jostling around we can do here. But we would like to make sure there's plenty of time and we have a little more time this afternoon. So just something to think about.
Susan, that's no problem. We can wait.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much, Charlie.
Yep.
All right, so questions for Leo. Do we have any? Liz, I'm going to hand this over to you to manage the questions.
We have no questions at this point. Oh, right when I said that, we got a hand raised here from Brett Brownscombe. So Brett, I'm going to unmute you and allow you to talk. Oh, Brett, can you hear us? I'm trying to unmute you, but you may need to accept on your end.
Okay, there we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Liz. And yeah, so my question was, in that part of Montana with a farming community and a ranching community, was there ever much of a wedge between the farming and the ranching community around the interest of what you all were doing? Because it seemed like the common ground that brought eventually the Nature Conservancy and the ranching community together was around grassland health, not necessarily creating more tilled crops. And I don't know if that created tension with the farming community, but I'm just curious.
To expound on that a little bit, Phillips County is about 100 miles long. When the Milk River divides it basically in half at midpoint, north and south. And north of the Milk River is a lot more intensely farmed. The soils are a lot better. The temperatures are a lot cooler. South of the Milk River, between the Milk River and the Fort Peck Reservoir, the soils are largely clay and they're difficult to farm. And so there's islands of farming in South Phillips County, but mostly it's grassland. And after the homestead era just did so much disturbance, it was seeded back to grass. And so we have this diverse grassland mixture of reclaimed or replanted grass, which was sage crested wheatgrass and sagebrush. And so the Nature Conservancy bought the Matador Ranch, which is largely grassland, and RSA's focus is nearly all in South Phillips County, because that is where all the conservation, the sage chickens and the antelope migration is basically through. So there's not been a farming grassland conflict with the Nature Conservancy or the Rancher Stewardship Alliance.
Okay, thanks, Leo. Yeah, it's a really impressive collaborative, and it sounds like that kind of geographic prioritization of where to go and where not to go was important juice to making it happen.
Yeah, like I don't know that I made it clear, but the ranching community was, for the most part, very unaware of the conservation values this region had. And once we understood the value of that, it was a lot easier to participate, and we could get a lot more support from the community.
Thank you so much, Leo, for your presentation and for responding to the question there. Really appreciate that. We are going to go ahead and wrap this up and move to our next presentation. But again, thanks so much, Leo. Really good information to have. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.